Welcome to English with Brian. In this series, we are going to get ready to start writing for the IELTS test by learning some important writing techniques. Let's get started. This video will focus on something called FANBOYS. You might be confused why I'm talking about FANBOYS like this, but there is a reason. These 7 letters are very useful for remembering 7 very special words in English. They are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Now, why do we care about these words? We care about these words because they are the 7 magical, special words in English that let us connect 2 clauses. If you don't know what a clause is, let me show you. Here's a clause. I run. This is a clause. I run. A clause has a subject. Here the subject is I, and then it has a verb. Here the verb is run. So I run is a clause. And this clause is a sentence. We know it's a sentence because it has a little period at the end. So these 7 words help us to connect these clauses together correctly instead of randomly or badly. So here's an example. I'm going to use and first because most of us know and already. I'm going to make a sentence like this. I run and I walk. Here we have one sentence because we just have one little period here, but we have 2 clauses. The first one is I run, and the second one is I walk. They are connected with this comma and this FANBOYS word, and. I'm going to call these FANBOYS words because they come from the FANBOYS list. Some people will not write this comma, but I believe that is a bad idea most of the time. I tell my students that it's like wearing a helmet. If you are riding a bike and you don't wear a helmet, you might be okay. If you don't crash, then you'll be fine. But if you do crash, you will really need that helmet. So this comma is the same way. It's like a helmet, but when we're writing. We don't always need it, but sometimes we really, really need it. So I always use it, just like I always put my helmet on when I ride my motorbike because I live in Vietnam. So we always do a comma and then one of the FANBOYS words. Now, let's go through this list from the top to the bottom so that you can feel comfortable and confident when you want to use these words to connect clauses. Let's start with the word for because that's at the top of the list. This word means different things in different situations, but as a FANBOYS word, it has only one meaning. And it's almost the same as another word, but not quite. So instead of writing this equals symbol, I'm going to write this little almost equals symbol. I'll explain that soon. It is almost equal to the word because. Now, when I say almost equal, what I mean is they actually have the same meaning, but their grammar is a little bit different. So, as an example, I can say, I am hungry because I haven't eaten. Sorry, my keyboard has a problem with the letter E, so when I push that key sometimes it doesn't work. This sentence has 2 clauses. We see I am hungry right here. This clause has the subject I and the verb am. And then over here, we have another clause. I is the next subject over here. And then this, depending on how you think about it, haven't eaten is the verb. Or you could say eaten is the verb, but this word hasn't really helps to make the tense correct. But anyway, it's one sentence with two clauses. We can say exactly the same thing with for, but we have to use that FANBOYS comma. Well, we don't have to, but it's a good idea, just like putting your helmet on. So I will just copy and paste this sentence down here. I will delete this because. I will put the very, very wise comma here and then add for, and then we're done. That's why I say that for and because are almost the same. They have the same idea, but the grammar is a little bit different. Because does not need a comma, but for, it doesn't need a comma, but it should have a comma. If you don't have the comma here, it becomes unclear. So that's why I like to use the comma with all of the FANBOYS words. We say, I am hungry, for I haven't eaten. Now, this is a very simple sentence. We could change it to make it more specific, like today, right? That makes a little bit more sense. But here we're just focusing on the grammar, how to use these words. Next, I want to talk about and. We just did that, but I want to talk about how it is similar to but. They're very similar in some ways, but there is a key difference. With and, we say these things if there is no conflict. For instance, I am happy and I will run today. These two things agree with each other. The word but is almost the same, but there needs to be a conflict, a disagreement of some kind between the clauses. For instance, if I change this to but, I need to make a conflict here. Maybe, but I am tired. Normally, if someone is tired, they may not feel happy, but maybe this person, maybe they went to the gym and they like going to the gym. So they feel happy, but they are tired. That is how and but are used. Aside from that, they are the same. We are putting two clauses together that are both true. With and, they both agree with each other. With but, they have a fight or some kind of unexpected twist. Next, let's move on to nor. Nor is kind of like and as well, but we use it for two negative things. Here's an example. I'll start with and then we'll transform it into nor. I'll make this sentence, let's see. I want to eat and I want to sleep. Maybe this person is hungry and sleepy. I'm going to change this into a sentence that uses nor by making this clause have a negative thing in it, and this clause must also have a negative thing in it, but in a slightly different way. Let's transform it now. I'm going to copy and paste, and then I'm going to make this verb negative by adding the word don't. I don't want to eat. It's negative now. And then we're going to change and to nor. And we're not quite done. Some people might think, oh, we just do the same thing over here. I don't want to eat. Not quite. I don't know why we do this in English. I'm sure it is because of the complicated history of English. But when we use nor, the second clause needs to look like a question. So imagine this. I want to sleep. That is saying something. I want to sleep. It's a statement. How can we turn that into a question? Well, here is how we would do it. Nor, do I want to sleep? Let's think about that. If we pretend that this is a question, it sounds correct. Do I want to sleep? That's a question. But here, it does not mean we're asking a question. This is not a question. This is how we use nor. The first one is a normal negative clause that has a word like don't or is not or something like that. And the second clause needs to look like a question. But what this means is I do not want to eat and I do not want to sleep. Nor is very fancy. Really educated speakers of English use it. So it's really good for boosting your scores in IELTS writing or anything else, any kind of English test. It's really, really useful if you can use it correctly because it's complicated. So it's easy to misuse, but if you use it, that will help your score. Let's move on now to or. We have with or a word that lets us put two clauses together to give a choice. For instance, you need to do the laundry or you need to cook. There's a choice here. Option 1, do the laundry. Option 2, do the cooking. There's a choice. When we use or as a FANBOYS word with the comma and or here to connect these two clauses, one of the clauses has to be chosen or has to be true. I'll give another example. I will go to the market or they will go for me. There we have another choice. I will go to the market or they, whoever they are, will go instead. That is how we use or. While we're here, I want to make a quick note. This for is the same word as this for, but it's not the FANBOYS for. Notice this is not connecting two clauses. Me is not a clause. And this, well, this is a clause, but this is not. So this is not a FANBOYS for. This is just a normal for. Next, let's move on to yet. Before I do that, I want to get rid of this because we'll talk about that later at the end of the video when we review. Okay, with yet, some of you might be thinking, Teacher Brian, isn't yet the same thing as but? And my answer is basically yes. But yet is a fancier version of but. So we usually use yet with very important things or very surprising things. But is the normal word, yet is the fancy dramatic word. For example, I want to go to the store, but I'm tired. This is not a very surprising sentence. It's not dramatic. It's not shocking. It's just a normal sentence about a normal feeling and a normal situation. Now, let's look at a similar but different sentence that is more special and dramatic and is therefore a better place in which to use the word yet. I wanted to go to the store, yet my heart told me that staying home would be better for my mental health. That is more dramatic. It has strong feelings. It's a very powerful sentence compared to this normal sentence, just feeling tired. Now, we could use but here. We could do that. But if you want to increase the variety in your vocabulary, this is a good way to do it. When we use two clauses and at least one of them is dramatic or emotionally strong or surprising in some way, I would recommend using yet there. Finally, let's move on to so, the final FANBOYS word. The good thing about so is that it is the backward version of for. Let me show you. Let's start with for. I am hungry, for I haven't eaten today. Now let's take this sentence and turn it into a place where so can live. I'm going to copy and paste it. And then I'm going to switch the two clauses. I'm going to take this one and put it after the fanboys word, and I'll take this one and put it before the fanboys word, and then I will change for into so. And now this is correct. These two sentences are equivalent. It means that they use different words and they use them in a different order, but they have the same idea. If you say, I am hungry, for I haven't eaten today, that is the same thing as saying, I haven't eaten today, so I am hungry. Those two are exactly the same. You might be thinking, why do we have two then if they're equivalent? Well, the reason is that it's nice to be able to say things in different ways. If you use for every time, it's like you're repeating yourself. But if you use for and so and you go back and forth, that makes your writing more interesting. It can make your speaking more interesting too. Looking a little bit more carefully, what we see is that for says this is true and here is the reason. So it is true that I am hungry. What's the reason for that? The reason is I haven't eaten today. So does exactly the opposite. So says, I have a reason for something, and then this is true. They do exactly the same thing, but in the opposite order. Those are the 7 magical fanboys words. Let's do a quick review. For, I'll write a sentence for each one as a way to review. And I'll put these 2 little lines here to separate the fanboys word that's over here as like a statue from the example. I am hungry, for I haven't eaten today. This is saying this is a true statement, and this is the reason for it. And, very easy, we have 2 true things. I am happy and I am hungry. Both of those clauses are true statements. Nor. We have 2 negative statements. I don't mean negative in a bad way. It just means they have the idea of a no or not in them. Here's an example. I am not happy. Now, I am happy, don't worry. Nor am I hungry. Notice I just took this sentence and made it negative. I made this clause become negative by adding not right here, am not happy. And I made this clause negative by following the special rules of nor, making this look like a question. Notice, am I hungry? That sounds like a question, so it's correct. Don't forget with nor, we must always use that question order after nor, not before. This one is just a normal negative clause. This is where the question rearranging has to happen. It's the clause after the fanboys word. Let's move on to but now. But is just like and, but with some kind of disagreement. I am happy, but I am sleepy. In my mind, when someone is happy, they have energy. So if they feel sleepy and happy at the same time, that's a little bit of a conflict. So we use but. Next, let's do or. I'll line it up like that. Here we have to make a choice. One of the clauses will be true or be chosen. I will eat this or I will eat that. This means that we will not eat this and that. We have to choose. Next, we have yet, which is just like but it's more dramatic. So let's see. I want to trust that person, yet that person lies. Let me make this a little bit smaller. There we go. Here, I could use but But the idea of a person lying is kind of dramatic, like, oh my gosh. And so it's a good place to use yet. Finally, we have so, which, as we saw earlier, is just for, but backward. So I'm going to take what I wrote for, and put it down here, and then rearrange it. I will take this clause and put it here. I will take this clause and put it here, and then finally change for into so. I haven't eaten today, so I am hungry. And there we have it, fanboys. These are the 7 magical words that allow us to connect independent clauses in English. We'll talk more about independent and dependent clauses in another video, but basically it means that I can say this, I haven't eaten today, and that can be a sentence all by itself. That means it is an independent clause. And this one too, I am hungry. I can say that as a sentence all by itself. If we can take a clause and say it as a sentence by itself, it's an independent clause. These are the only 7 words in English that let us combine independent clauses like this. There are other words that do similar things, like because, but they're a little bit different. We'll talk about those in another video. Remember, these tools are fantastic for increasing your writing scores and also your speaking scores. But here with fanboys, you see we have these commas. No one can see a comma when you're speaking, but in writing, they do matter a lot. So don't forget them. I recommend using a comma whenever you use a fanboys word. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.